2 o'clock in the afternoon. I just got up. I had breakfast and then I passed out because I didn't get any sleep last night. So I'm just getting my day started at 2. I didn't sleep last night because I didn't have any, couldn't breathe because I had asthma because of that beer. Fucking idiot. I'm not going to drink any more beer. I didn't even get drunk. So let's see here. This is a crust video. A couple days ago, some dude goes, you should do a video telling when, where, why, and how you decided to live in your van, and especially why you decided to live in your van and work on your timeline. And then I've had 2 other people say that, suggest, like one other guy goes, why don't you get a job? But I think he asked that as a friendly way. And then another guy, I uploaded a video a couple months ago about how people should give me money for my timeline because I'm broke and everything and I can make them famous because I attached their name and how much they gave me on my site. And some dude goes, just get a job. And then somebody else writes on my profile a couple months ago, just get a job, get a job. So why do I not get a job and why do I prefer to live within my car? Okay, number one reason why I prefer to not have a job is I don't have to have a job. You know, get me my money, which isn't that much. I'm not supposed to say how much it is, but I guess this is part of the video, so I have no other choice but to say it's something like $1,000 a month. Oil royalties. Grandfather bought up all this land in Texas and then sold it, but kept the mineral rights. So then we get money from oil royalty. And some people might be like, $1,000 a month, how do you do it? Well, yeah, it actually is possible to do it on $1,000 a month. If you eat canned fruits and vegetables. Right now I'm about $1,700 in debt. Probably more than that. By now I haven't looked in because I've been spending a lot of money on Christmas. But I think I'll be able to pay that off because I only recently really started working on living on just fruits and vegetables, or canned fruit and vegetables, mainly vegetables, and raw eggs and oatmeal. And if you live off of that, and I mean, I don't have any desire to get anything other than that. And I will do a demonstration video on exactly how much money I spend because I've had 3 people ask me about that. So, okay, I guess I'll start the story at the beginnings. I saved up money for 3 years to do a kayak trip, but then 2 months before we were going to leave, my friend bailed on me. And I didn't want to do the kayak trip alone because I wasn't mentally prepared for that. And I am going to do the kayak trip when I'm done with my timeline, and I'm going to do it alone. I'm not going to invite anybody else, even though it'd be easy as pie to get somebody to come with me. I think it would be better to just have people do short jaunts with me. Just 2 people who I bump into during the trip, and do a little bit down the coastline or something, but do the major crossings just by myself. Because, I mean, I think I get people to be like, yeah, I'll do the major crossing with you, but then the time comes and they're going to be like, ooh, I don't think I will. So anyways, I was like, oh, let me go bike touring. So I went bike touring instead for 5.5 months, and it was awesome. I had an awesome time. And then I came back from the bike touring, and I was like, you know what? I'm in shape. I want to just keep on riding around America and stuff. But, and so I went down to Tucson. I was going to do that, but, well, before that, my mountain bike broke in half. And then I had another mountain bike, and it turned out that wasn't a proper mountain bike because whenever you hit rocks, the headset falls out, and you can't get another headset. And also the bottom bracket breaks off, and you can't get another one of those. So it's just a around a town bike. It's even a barely around the town bike. So is that bottom bracket? So for the first day, and I actually was vlogging, doing daily vlogs when this happened, a little more than a year ago. I was frustrated for the first day, and then I looked at my timeline, and I was like, I started working on it. Now the story about my timeline is I started that in Chile, a month before I moved back to America. I just my wife was on vacation with her boyfriend. I didn't know she was on vacation with her boyfriend, but she was on vacation with her boyfriend, and I was just kind of sitting around, and I could have gone mountain biking and stuff. It was prime time to do mountain biking, but I wasn't really motivated for some reason to do that. And so I just worked on I just created this timeline. And The original idea for the timeline was just basic, you know? And it's actually the timeline that you can see on my site right now, the one that's connected together. And but then I looked at it again and I was like, let me make it a little bit better, and let me make it a little bit better. And I was like, fuck it, let me make it really good. And at the beginning I thought it was going to be done by like the end of February of this year. But then this summer, I don't remember exactly when it was, but this summer I decided, I was like, fuck it. I got to make this a complete timeline. It has to be a 100% timeline. And there are no other timelines like this. And nobody is going to make another timeline like this. I'm the only one. I mean, I don't know that for sure. That's just the feeling that I get, that I'm the only one. And, which basically means, a complete timeline basically means you include every country in the world. Like the history of every country. You can go back until the beginning of time. And you list everything that happened. Like if you were to read a Wikipedia article of any country, and you see dates, that date's going to be on my timeline of every country. And if you have like a list of every war, every battle in the history of mankind from the beginning of recorded history, all of those battles are going to be on my timeline, as well as all the details of all the battles. And it's all going to be organized in a condensed way, but it's going to be complete. For example, it's going to show who fought who, and on all of the sides, on each side, who won, how big the army was on each side, how big the casualties were on each side, and then the treaty behind it, the resulting treaty. But I'm going to have it condensed, so that people can see all that kind of stuff via color coding and the organization of the placement of the different things. And so it's all just jam-packed, condensed. And then, I'll have every plague, every war, every migration, every king, or every leader of every country. And if it's not a sovereign country, and as well as states within the empire, but if it's not a sovereign state or whatever, I will have the vassal, countries, kingdoms, and the principalities and provinces within countries that that's all they were in the past. Countries like Romania and Serbia and stuff like this. And then, of course, everything, that's my recorded timeline, but then have another timeline that goes back to the beginning of time in the universe that has everything, like literally everything placed on there as well. And also in different dimensions. Each one being 10 times bigger than the other, so you can zoom in with instantaneous clicking 10 times in. Like you're zooming in, like that Power of 10 website I made, or the other website. Somebody else sent me another website somebody made about that. 10 times in. Well, it's the same thing with time. Like this represents 10 billion years, and then you click on it, and then this represents 1 billion, and then this represents 100 million, and then this represents 10 million, this represents a million, this, like that. So, I decided to do that, even if it takes me forever, because because I'm also living in my van in America, and I got a gym membership at Gold's, and you can theoretically, at least what the guys told me at the gym that I got my membership at, that you can go to any Gold's in America, and there's 650 of them, and go there for free for 2 weeks. And then move on. And I'm glad that there was a 2-week limit, because I'd get stuck if there wasn't. And I like having to move on because it keeps me moving, and but it also allows me to stay put and not spend too much money on gas moving around all the time. So yeah, I would like to renew, hopefully they give me a good price again. I'd like to renew my membership at Gold's, partly because I have these 2-week limits. And so I can, when the Gold's has internet, I can work on the treadmill, and that I usually walk like 10 miles a day, and then I work out for a couple hours on top of that, so it's pretty cool. And then, but if there's not internet there, I would spend time at a Starbucks, and there's always Starbucks. For example, I'll give you a little idea of your typical American city. My Gold's Gym is right behind that building, pretty much. You know, like if you were to go past that light and then go behind that building, the first road behind that building, you'd see Gold's if you go around that building. It's actually in that building right there. That's the building that Gold's is in. So, and then my Starbucks is right there. Starbucks. And my Walgreens, where I sleep in the parking lot, is like right behind that building. And I am in a Safeway parking lot at this juncture, present juncture moment at this time of the time-space continuum. And I slept behind that 7-Eleven one night, and there's high-speed internet from this Safeway. In fact, I can almost get internet at Starbucks, the Safeway internet at that Starbucks. It picks it up and almost picks it up. So Safeway, all Safeways have internet too, free internet. So there's basically, in America, even if I wouldn't have to go to a Starbucks, if I had more solar panels on my roof and 2 RV batteries instead of 1, I could just sit in my car and park like right here. If I did internet, I'd have high-speed internet right here. I had nice internet like 2 nights ago when I was parked out on that road next to that farmhouse. There was internet from somebody's house. The last town I was in, like 3 different places I parked were internet. And one place was hardcore high-speed internet, dude. Like, I could watch as many YouTube videos as I wanted, not even have to wait for them to load. They just load right up. Watching them. Yeah, dude, I uploaded a video that night from there. Actually, I'd uploaded a video from another place. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. So, you can get a Wi-Fi anywhere. And if you're, and if you want to, like, be out in the middle of the boonies, you could get your Wi-Fi from your phone, which is another like $50 a month, which I'm not going to spend because it's just not necessary. I like hanging out in the Starbucks because it's their couches are really comfortable, and and I don't mooch off of them. I don't like go in and buy one coffee and don't buy anything else the rest of the day. Starbucks get a lot of business, dude, and it's not from people who sit down forever. There's always places to sit down in a Starbucks. It's from people doing the drive-thru. And from walking in, buying coffee, and then leaving. But I've been spending a lot of money there every day, like $10 at least, just lately. But normally I would go in and I'd get like a fruit juice and a coffee, so I'd spend like $5, and that'd be like what I'd spend for the whole day, because then I get my free coffee refills. I'm gonna quit coffee pretty soon, so when I go in, I'm just gonna get my fruit juice, and that's good enough, Yeah. So, as far as answering the direct question, why don't I get a job? Like if somebody may be like, I'm not going to give you money for your timeline, even if you need it. You should get a job instead. Or that dude who's like, get a job, just get a job, get a job. Oh yeah, well, and I've had some other people like comment on my site, like assholes, be like, you're a bum. You need to get a job. Well, looking at the world and choosing my life to live, and doing what I think is best for the world at large, and especially for me, is to do the timeline. It's not to get a job. I mean, think about it. If we have all this unemployment and people can't get jobs, and I don't have to get a job because I'm frugal as fuck, and I got that money coming in and I'm a frugal motherfucker, then I would be doing a disservice to all those other people who have to get jobs. If I got a job, what about the poor guy who needs a job more than me? He could use that job. That's number 1 reason why I wouldn't get a job. Number 2 reason is that it's better for me to not get a job because I can spend time educating myself with this timeline. I'm learning a lot. I'm listening to, on my MP3 player, I'm listening to history. I'm learning about history with the audiobooks and stuff. And by the way, if you want to send me your hard drive, I can fill it up. I did that once to somebody a couple of weeks ago. I'm learning that way, and I'm also listening to, Young Turks on internet. I think I'm going to listen to more stuff they have, the other channels they have. Ron Paul, he uploads these hour-long speeches, and it's like basically giving you lessons on the economy. It's really cool. Stuff stuff like that. You know, there's, and it's all, and but I'm making my timeline. I'm also learning with my timeline, working on my timeline. I'm learning, putting it together, and I am filled with amazing amount of joy in my heart when I'm working on that timeline. I mean, you know what I mean? Like when you're just so happy, you're just bubbling with happiness. You're just like, you're like tickled, like, oh my God. That's how I feel when I'm working on my timeline. It's like a drug. I'm in there and I'm like, you know, whether I'm copying and pasting or I'm like scratching my head being like, when should I put this here? Then we go, ah, yes, okay, let me put that there. And then I'm like learning and I'm figuring it out and I'm looking at the maps and seeing where it goes. I'm just like, I'm so tickled. It's like a little kid getting off playing a puzzle. It's a giant puzzle I'm putting together, and it doesn't take that much brain power. It's something that pretty much anybody could do. But it takes a lot of time. And it's the cool thing about it not taking a lot of brain power is that a lot of the times I can focus on what I'm listening to and do my timeline and learn from the timeline and what I'm doing and what I'm listening to at the same time. You know, I'm not burning myself out, focusing all my energy on the timeline, which basically means I can work on that timeline all day long and I don't burn out. You know, I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, that was a hard day of work. At the end of the day, I'm like, damn it, I ran out of time. Fuck, I always lose. I always run out of time. But I have tomorrow, you know. It's amazing. I mean, I have so much fun on the timeline that I have to I get drug away from the gym. I'm like working out the gym, and yeah, it's fun to work out the gym, but I'm like, the timeline though. And I go back there, you know. And that's one reason I haven't been uploading videos lately, other than my vlog videos, is because I just don't have the time. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going timeline. So that's why I don't get a job. If I got a job, I wouldn't have time for my timeline. My timeline is extremely time consuming. I called my family today, right? Because it's Christmas Day of Jesus, Lord and Savior. And my brother's like, so how much longer do you think it's going to take on your time? I was like, I don't know, 4 years. My mom was like, 4 years? Yeah. But it's like, yeah, it's true. It's probably going to take me like 4 more years. I've been going about a year on it so far. And I mean, if you look at my timeline, it's not like, and you zoom and you look back in the history of most of the countries, it's not even, it's empty. It's like nothing. I'm only getting started. So, and I've only just begun the ancient history timeline, you know. And I'm gonna make a future timeline as well, which is part of the same project. And then I have to make videos for it, screen capture videos, lessons of it, and attach all those photos. Eventually, I'll attach audio files to all of that, but that's not part of the same project. That'll be like timeline project part 2 that I'll get other people to help me with, but with a budget. But yeah, it's a lot of work, dude. If you go after you do your choo-choo, you don't have to do another achoo. Just remember about that. That's why I don't get a job. If I got a job, it would take me 20 years to do my timeline, and it wouldn't take 4 years, you know? I mean, people who do stuff that takes the man hours of my timeline have teams of people behind them. And yeah, maybe I could get some people to help me out with the timeline I'm doing now, but the problem about getting some people to help me with the timeline I'm doing now is that I'm not going to be as familiar with history, and I like being completely familiar with history, like knowing everything, because I'm learning while I'm putting it together. So, yeah, if I had other people do it, it'd come together faster, but I wouldn't be as familiar with it. You could become familiar with it by looking at it, but I want to be more familiar with it, because the more familiar with my timeline I am by the time it's done, the better videos I'm going to make with it. I'm going to have more ideas on stuff to do with it. I'm going to be able to explain the passage of time and all that kind of stuff, and have time history of different things, and I'm going to know how to organize it better. And besides, I don't want other people to try to give me suggestions. This is my project. And any suggestions somebody gives me, it's just going to be stupid suggestions. I think I'm the only one who knows how to do it right. I mean, and I don't even think people understand what I'm doing anyways. Like some guys, like some Polish dude keeps writing a couple times on my videos like, you should do it with like some other program. And I'm like, why? He's like, it would save you so much time. It's like, you don't understand what I'm doing. The time isn't the program. The time spent is me typing the stuff in, typing it in. That's what takes time. Dragging and dropping, I mean, it doesn't matter what program you use. It's still going to take forever. And the program I'm using, just regular HTML with Dreamweaver, is perfect because it's really easy to learn how to use. I could teach somebody to make my timeline pretty much from scratch in like a day. You know, simple. Which basically means that other people, because some people have suggested with my timeline to make it interactive the way that Wikipedia is. And the way that it's designed now, you could make it interactive. People would just copy the code, the HTML code, onto their computer, open it up with their web design program, which anybody can use, whether it's the Windows one that I can't remember, Front Page or Dreamweaver, and tweak it around for them for their own self and make their own timeline. Even it wouldn't take that long because I had already done all the work. They could take stuff out, they could add stuff, use the same format, and there you go, interactive. Put that on their website, and they're like, well, look at mine, look at my version. It's better than Kyle's version, you know? I mean, I'm not looking to make money with ads with my timeline. There's going to be no space on my site, on my timeline, to put ads. Like the whole thing's going to be on one page. Hopefully that's how it's going to be. I don't know. The idea is that the whole thing's on one page. I don't know if, because you can, when you click it, it zooms around instantaneously and then all the pictures load. So even if you have a really slow internet connection, it still moves around because it depends on it being able to move around quickly. And also to load all the pictures so that when you mouse over the thing, the picture appears suddenly. But and that's why it's not pasted together. If you look at my site, the only timeline you're actually going to see completely pasted was my version 1 timeline, but you can get the idea of what it's all about. And then you look over on the left there. And my timeline page does take a long time to load at this point because there's lots of embedded videos on there. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to make, when I'm done with my timeline, I'm going to tweak my website so that it doesn't have any embedded videos anymore, so that the pages load and it just has the link to the video you open up and opens up in another window. Embedded videos are stupid. I don't know why I ever did that. And the bigger the video is on the embedment, then the slower it takes to load. It's stupid. But yeah, that's why you have to have some patience. And but in a few months, I'm going to fix my site, fix my front page. Even if and I'm not going to paste it together because my computer can't do that. It doesn't have the memory. But I'm going to make it clearer to people so that they understand what it is more, and make it fix up the website, the page of the timeline, and maybe even actually have the new URL, ultimatetimeline.net, which I have, and ask the rich people for money so that I can buy a computer that can paste it together. And yeah, as long as they don't stick their nose in my business. Yeah. And so that's why I don't get a job. I mean, and I guess I'll talk about the importance of my timeline. I mean, I think my timeline's really good for the world because the most important thing you can do for society, and I'll talk about this in the other video I'm just going to upload next, but if you want to fix the world, you want to fix the world from the inside out, you want to fix the DNA. If you want to fix somebody, make somebody well, you would you would fix it from the cause. You would fix the cause of the problem. And I think the world we're in right now, it needs to have a metamorphosis, change from a worm into a butterfly. Like a completely different animal. And when the gestation of the worm turns into the butterfly, they kind of coexist there for a bit. The worm melts its body away, and meanwhile the butterfly is turning into its own little furry little worm, and then it busts out and flies away. I think we need to do a metamorphosis in the world where we completely change our DNA, basically, of humanity. And I mean, I'm talking, actually, we will change our DNA, physically DNA, but that was the way that I'm using it as a metaphor. We need to change the DNA of, like, our humanity, like what we think about everything. And in order for that to happen, we all have to be educated. And I think the best way to get educated is to have good knowledge of history. Because we need to have a knowledge of, like, say, important topics. Education to me means having an opinion about something. I remember seeing on, like, CNN or something, oh, America's education is falling. We're like, oh, not even top 20 in all of the education, such as math and science. And it's like math and you know, in Korea is always in 1 or 2. They're so much smarter in South Korea. I don't consider math and science education. That's knowledge about technical knowledge. And only mathematicians and scientists in their particular field have any use for that. So it doesn't do the country any good if everybody... It's like, what good does it do America if everybody knows how to work on a car, you know, when there's only can be a certain amount of mechanics in the world? No. You need everybody to be educated in politics. You need people. That's what, you know, the education criteria needs to be. How well did people score on politics, you know? Like being able to define all the different kinds of government. Be able to list the pros and cons of different kinds of government and different kinds of programs, and so that they have an idea about that, and then they plug that into their own country, and they know exactly who's in power, what political party they're a part of, what their political party is about, what all of the bills have been introduced are, what are all of the laws in effect, how are the laws changing. But if you want to know all that, that's what education should be, you know, how well versed people are in that. But if people want to be really good at that, you would begin by history, because our political system that is in structure now is a result of thousands of years of evolution. And just as when you study math, you would start math with the basic formulas, basic problems, and then you work up from there. And you can't become proficient at the more advanced stuff until you're proficient at the basic stuff. You have to pass the basic, and then you move to the next one, and then you move to the next one. Build it up from the bottom. And that's how, if you want to know politics and know, like, who to vote for and what kind of laws to have, and what kind of freedoms to have, and what kind of laws are best for your country, and it's going to create the best country and the happiest people. You're going to want to know all those laws starting from the basic bottom, because as societies get more advanced, the laws change. The laws have to change due to like inventions. Somebody invents the printing press, and you don't want to, like, suppress people from being able to print books, you know. And people do that, you know. When the printing press was invented, the Catholic Church tried to suppress the printing of books because then they wanted to regulate, you know. And maybe that was appropriate, maybe at one point in time, you know, like if they did that because maybe somebody was counterfeiting it and they didn't want somebody to write the wrong Bible or whatever. But so then they had to legalize it, and certain freedoms, you know, there's times where it's better if everybody's like a horde, a retarded horde. You wouldn't want to have like a pure democracy. It's like, let's all vote for this, and then they all vote for the wrong thing, and like, let's go to war against them because they pissed us off when they didn't know like the reason for why they say encroached on your land like that. Maybe because they had a famine or whatever, and there's only one person who knows that, is like the king, because he read the transcripts, he could read the other language, and he knew what was going on with that other kingdom. And so that's like where monarchies were better. It was actually, I think, a better system of government. But then once people get, because monarchies, they can communicate. The leaders can actually communicate, diplomats between different countries, and keep all the laws, trade laws, and the money, and well-oiled, consistent, and they would even intermarry with each other and all that stuff. But but then, because everybody else, they couldn't read, and they were just the horde, And if you let the horde do whatever they want, then you're going to have like feudalism, and each valley is going to be a different kingdom and fighting all the time. And yeah, but then at one point, when people become educated enough, they have to they're going to demand to be part of the decision-making process. And so then you move into the republic. And so anyways, that's all history, though. I was just like giving history lessons. But as you move in, if you move forward in time with the development of society, the laws change. And our world is changing right now due to all this new technology we have, and all of the coming together of the earth, with different people around the world learning English and communicating via the internet with each other. We're going to have to kind of tweak our laws and allow ourselves to be more free, and also, but decide what we think about international copyright protection stuff. And we need to be able to have an educated public, where the entire public is educated. And that's what I was meaning by, we need to have a metamorphosis, like a DNA change at the very basic level, a reprogramming of society, and that the humans, the normal people, the masses, the hordes, need to become part of the decision-making process. They need to be aware of all of the laws that are passed and everything, and why the certain laws need to change. And you can only know what certain laws need to change if you look in past and you see how not changing laws caused violent revolutions that didn't go smoothly, and big wars. French Revolution is a good example of that. And how freedoms actually help a society. How our Constitution, protecting the rights of citizens, is allows us to be free and do what we want and invent stuff with unfettered. And because if we have like a big government that controls everything, doesn't allow anybody to do anything, then it just bogs us all down. And just look at like Russia and communism, where they had all that control and they didn't produce anything. And I think it's really important these days because of these presidents we have, the politicians that we have in right now, due to the fact that the populace is uneducated, and they're not voting in real politicians. What they're voting in are people who are just they work for the big businesses and basically do what the big businesses tell them to, and also just people who aren't that smart, don't know what they're doing, don't have any knowledge of history, and don't know the right laws to pass. For example, the National Defense Authorization Act that was signed last week by President Obama, who was one of the people who actually wanted it, according to Ron Paul. He really wanted that. It allows the president to execute American citizens without a trial. And the only reason they would need is because you visited a website of a group that that of a website that the government deemed to be anti-government, or if you go to like a mosque that the government hits. So it's basically I guess it throws out the Fourth and Fifth Amendment and posse comitatus, which was another amendment passed in Civil War that basically says that even in a time of war, I haven't read any of these laws, I'm just like winging it. You can't prosecute an American without a trial, and that's what that National Defense Authorization Act did. Is it basically says that they can the military can get in there and convict you and kill you and without a trial. So it just repealed Fourth, Fifth Amendment and Posse Comitatus Act, and so we're going backwards. So the people who wrote those laws, like Barack Obama, he appears to be smart, but he's really just a good speaker who has the same kind of speech over and over again. I watched Obama in a speech, that like an hour-long one last week, and it sounded like it was exactly like his when he was running for president. Those speeches, when he was just like, well, I'm from here in Kansas, and I was born just down the way, or my dad was born, just good American citizens, and we're not going to let those people take us. And it was like, and I got like 15 minutes into the hour long, and he still hadn't gotten started yet until I realized he was never going to. He was just going to do this blah 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 blah. We are Americans, and we're not, just like not actually say anything. Yeah, and so he signs this thing in. He taught the Constitution at the University of Chicago. So apparently, even though he was teaching it there, he doesn't know the Constitution. And these people who wrote it, they don't know it. And that thing passes, and nobody really knows. This is another video I'm going to make, but nobody even knows that they violated the Constitution because people don't know the Constitution. But that's history. That's the knowledge of history. So it's important to know history. It's important to know how far back in time we're reverting ourselves. 1215 is when the Magna Carta was signed, and that was basically a contract that the king couldn't go to war without the approval of the governors of the Senate. And now under this act, or now, I don't know if it's that act, but the president can go to war without the approval of the Senate. They've always had to have the approval of the Senate. It's written in the Constitution. But Obama went into Libya, waging war without approval of the Senate. And I think, didn't Bush do that? I know that Obama did that. So yeah, we're violating the Constitution, and we're actually going back to pre-1215 days. 1,000 years ago. And but if everybody knew that, if all of the Americans knew that, then we wouldn't stand for it. So that's the importance of history. Knowing that what those laws create. Once we get more freedoms and then people get to do more. Studying history of England is interesting because they had a very free society. They were the first country to have a constitutional monarchy where the king was just had to get permission from all the other nobles and stuff to do any kind, different kinds of things, just due to lucky occurrences, like having a woman queen in an important time in history, and Queen Elizabeth and that kind of stuff. The king actually since 1707 constitutionally has less power than the president was given under the Constitution. So, and then England ended up being the one that did the Industrial Revolution and all that kind of stuff, and it's not an accident. So, just stuff like that. We know, if we know history, we know the value of what's good and how to avoid what's bad. We'll know all the destruction that centralized, overpowered governments have on their society, like Ceausescu, with the kind of crazy stuff that he did with forcing people to have little kids and making meat farms with little babies, and and then, well, all the people who Stalin killed. I mean, I don't want to get too much into examples, but that's what history is, you know? That's why we should learn history. So, but the best way to educate people on like political stuff is history. That's the main. That is, if you want to learn like different types of government, different kind of laws to do, it's history. You would learn the history of it. You know, economics. It's basically a history lesson. You start with Locke, you know, and Marx but why were Locke and Marx saying this stuff? Well, you would have to go into the world that they lived in. It's basically a history lesson. Now, there's another reason why we should study history of the world, is that it's time we look at the world as one country. We're gonna have the United States of the world pretty soon. Maybe within our lifetime, but definitely within our kids' lifetime. And just like Americans, you know, we watch the presidential debates and we talk about the laws the government passes, and we want to like debate the exact definitions of like the limits of states' rights and all that kind of stuff. And well, like I said, you know, as far as history goes, yeah, debating like the limits of states' rights and all that kind of stuff. If you were to talk about nit-gritty little like specific laws about that, getting into history is the best, pretty much the only way to do it. You would just tell examples of history and all that kind of stuff. But if we're going to look at the world, we want to look at the world the way that we look at America. You know, we don't want to like be like, you know, here in America, because we're not one country anymore. We do international business. We buy our stuff from all over the world. We do trade all over the world, and it's only going to get easier to do that. The world's only going to get smaller once energy becomes cheaper. You know, we have free energy. We can travel around a lot cheaper and easier, and trade and communicate a lot better over the internet. Everybody's going to learn English. There's no other way around it. We are going to become a one world country, United States of the world. Just kind of like how America is the United States of America, the big melting pot of the world. You look around in any country or any town in America, you look around and you can see people of every single race. That 7-Eleven over there has Abu. Hey, I am Abu. And then he has like Ching Chang working with him. You got the Indian Native Americans, you got the Negroes, yellow race, teriyaki place over there, you got the little Southeast Asians. America's got everybody, okay? Only we all speak with the same accent, we're all the same people, you know? You talk to somebody over the phone, and a lot of times you can't tell what they look like because they all have the American accent. But that's how the whole world's going to be. So it's time right now. You know, we don't want to like do it later. Right now is the time just to begin trying to make the world one, looking at the world like it's one country. And the best way to start doing that is to be interested in the rest of the world, like what's going on in the rest of the world now. But the beginning of being interested in the rest of the world is to know the history of the rest of the world. Just like if you want to be interested in America, you would obviously want to know the history of America. I mean, how old are we when we learn about the history of America? We've had history lessons since we were 5 years old. You know, they tell you that whole, you know, Americans do not lie. Americans do not lie. And there's that story about George Washington when he chopped down his daddy's cherry tree and he said he would not lie. Even though that's not true. That story isn't true. I mean, that we've learned that when we were 5 years old. That's like a history tale. We learned the Boston Tea Party and the Paul Revere's March. We learned those stories back when we were little kids in school, and then we learned them over and over again. And history is something that that's ingrained in our in our education all over the world, and everybody's education, no matter what country or tribe you come from. They all do history. And so if you want to know anything about another country, you would know their history. And you want to know their history, you want to be equally interested in all parts of the world as the same. Just like when you study history, you want to know history of where you're from the most, but you want to know history of all of America, like it's one country. So you want to know the history of all the world, the whole world, every single country. And some people might be like, "Oh, it's too much. People aren't interested in that. People are going to get overwhelmed." It's, well, if you make a really good history map, it's not overwhelming. It's something that, anybody can know everything that happened in history. If the map is presented in a consistent way, where everything in the world is shown in the same way, and so you can actually see how everything develops in the same way. You can see how when you superimpose different worlds, different countries that are happening at the same time on top of each other, like the way that my site is, you can look at like the timeline of like Central Africa, and then click, and then all of a sudden it's the timeline of Northern Africa, and you can see like right at about 1920 everybody becomes a republic. 1960 all these countries become independent into the Commonwealth, and then the wars and the results of them, and you see how it all. You can see how like serfdom, and then this was invented, and then right after serfdom was abolished, and this happened, and then you'll start to see consistencies between different parts of the world, even if they're on the other side of the world, like the feudalistic structure, and realize that knights and samurai are the same thing. They had the same job, and monarchies work the same, and they're all passed down to the son, and which laws are similar, which laws are different, and you'll see how we're all the same. We may look differently, but we're all the same. And and one interesting thing about history is every single country, basically in the past, has an empire where they took over all the other countries. And they have like their golden era and even when they were like exporting the most and were the richest. So everybody can have something to be proud of in their past. Especially the Muslims. A lot of people like to talk trash about the Muslims, but they were the most advanced people in the world back 1,000 years ago. And so they could be. There's no reason to not be proud of Muslims. And I think one reason why a lot of Americans they want to go into the Muslims and kill them and all that kind of stuff is because they just do not. They honestly they just don't know history. If they knew history, if these conservative people on like Fox and stuff knew history, they wouldn't, and all these like Americans who want to go in and join the army and knew a little bit of history, I think that it would be a lot easier for them to just want to go into Iran and give them computers and know that if they did that, that would fix stuff, and that those people, there's a lot of people in Iran who are really friendly and are educated and stuff. It's just that they're leaders. Somehow they got in their head that they needed to get leaders in to protect themselves, to get them in America. I don't know. But I mean, we've got stupid leaders too, so. Yeah, anyways, so that's why I think my timeline is the best tool for that. And so that's why I'm so happy when I make it. I think it's the great vehicle to bring that kind of education to people in a way that brings us all together, makes us interested in history, and we can understand history. And you can study just the part of the world that you're into, that you're only interested in, but right there, one click away, it's going to be the rest of the world, and you're eventually going to be like, yeah, I heard about that Genghis Khan guy. I wonder who he was a contemporary of in America. Oh, look, he was a contemporary of Robin Hood. I didn't know that. Who is this guy a contemporary of? Oh, I just saw a movie about the ancient you know, our Achaemenid kingdom. I wonder what was going on in Europe at that time. Clickety click, you know, and you can see the movies on there. Anyways, I'm out of time, but that's the doggy style way. That's why I don't get a job and I work on my timeline. My timeline is my job. So, peace out, doggy style. Jesus Christ of Lord and Savior Nazareth.